I wonder. Click.
He was in jail right now for killing the President of the United States. How much worse could life get, really? The U.S. government couldn't have it. There's no way they could keep that man alive, so they had to have him killed immediately. And I believe that Jack Ruby was the assassin to do that.
Absolutely insane. And so I'm sitting here, I'm watching it happen in real time. I'm like, they're not even trying to hide it from us anymore. Oh my God, it blows my mind, dude. So then I wake up the next morning and Facebook, gone. They deleted me completely. They were censoring me the very next day. The First Amendment is dead, you guys. The government has the technology to spread propaganda and misinformation like we've never seen in history. This is legit the Great Reset. It's happening right now. We deserve to know what's really going on. This is the Uncensored Truth.
What's up, guys? It's Jeremy with the Uncensored Truth, the podcast designed to free your minds from the grips of the mainstream media by giving you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the uncensored truth. Like I said, my name is Jeremy, and you know who I am. You know what I'm here to do. I'm here to rock. Just kidding. Shout out Sam Tripoli. That's his thing. I'm not going to fucking do that. That's not my thing. Speaking of Sam Tripoli and the Tinfoil Hat podcast, it's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to just because of the fact that they do a good job of kind of staying away from the politics and what's going on in the news, and then still talk about actual conspiracy theories that are out there because it's a little more entertaining. It doesn't keep you down. It doesn't ruin your life. It doesn't put you in a bad mood like CNN or MSNBC, Fox News, you know, just like watching the news does. It's horrible, man. If you want to be in a bad mood, turn on the TV and watch the news, man. But I want to try and do that with this episode. I'm going to stay away from coronavirus and all this other shit, and I want to dip back into some conspiracy theories, stuff that I have been passionate about for the last few years, for sure. And one of them, one of the biggest ones, for sure, the biggest conspiracy theory that I can even think of was the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, if you're familiar with our other channel, Mic Drop, Mildly Intelligent Conversations with me and Eric, we've already done an episode on the JFK assassination. And so if you would like to check that out, go over to that channel, Mic Drop, Mildly Intelligent Conversations. Watch that episode. It's really good. It was one of our first ones, so we kind of sucked at it. We weren't very good at it, I don't think. It's still a good one. It's got a lot of information. It's awesome. But with this episode, I'm going to talk about that. I'm actually the conspiracy surrounding the JFK assassination is so big. There's so many different avenues to go down, so many different paths, so many different people involved that each thing itself could be an episode on its own. And so that's what I'm going to do here. Today, I want to talk about Jack Ruby. Now, Jack Ruby is the guy who killed JFK. Jack Ruby is a Dallas nightclub owner who killed Lee Harvey Oswald like 2 days after he had actually killed John F. Kennedy, allegedly. Now, I don't really believe that's what happened. I believe that there's a much bigger conspiracy here. I believe that the CIA, the mob, mafia, whatever, and officials in the U.S. government actually got together and had JFK assassinated, and then they actually had Lee Harvey Oswald working with the CIA, and then also Jack Ruby working with the mob to essentially tie up some loose ends. The first loose end, one of the biggest loose ends. And it's just, you know, there's so much involved just in this story with Jack Ruby that, again, it's an episode on its own, and that's what I wanted to do this about. So, yeah, let's get into it. First, if this is your first time watching, please subscribe on YouTube. Like the Facebook page, The Uncensored Truth. Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. You know what to do. Just please like and follow. That's the best way you can help the show. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, please follow us on there. If you listen to podcasts, check it out, man. It's I try to upload an episode once a week. I do take a break there, kind of like seasons you see in sitcoms and whatnot, but I try to take a little break during the summertime usually, and then come back, and I try to release an episode once a week, and so that's what I'm doing. But yeah, this one here is going to be on Jack Ruby, the man who killed the man who killed the man. if you want to put it that way. That was weird. Anyways, yeah, this one is going to be just on Jack Ruby. But first, I want to just give you a quick rundown of the assassination itself so you understand kind of the backstory of why Jack Ruby is involved, and then we'll get into his story. JFK, the 35th President of the United States, was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963 at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time in Dallas, Texas. He was riding in a presidential motorcade through Daley Plaza. He was riding with his wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, and Texas Governor John Connally. John Connally's wife was also with them at the time that this happened. Now, there was a bunch of reroutes and shit that happened during their route through frickin' Dallas, Texas that day, Daley Plaza, whatever. And so that alone is just kind of sketchy how it went down. I know that there was a ton of people surrounding his vehicle, and just before they had turned the corner, there was a reroute where they turned the corner to Daley Plaza. Not only that, but a lot of his guards had actually stepped back. You can see video footage of it. It's really weird because they're like, what? And then they fall back just before they get on this final stretch where he was shot. And that shit alone, again, it's crazy. There's still a few people around him, but not much. And anyways, it was around noon. Again, right after this last-minute reroute, JFK's limousine is driving just over 10 miles per hour. Shots were fired from multiple directions. Now, I say multiple directions because there's been a second investigation that went underway. The House Select Committee on Assassinations, I can't remember who it was, but they actually came to the conclusion that there was more than one shooter. So that's why I say multiple directions, multiple shooters. I'll get into that a little bit more in detail later, but obviously it's still to this day one of the most horrific things that's ever fucking happened in history, because people saw, like when the Zapruder film came out and people were able to see this actual event take, my fucking God. My work's calling. You know what? Fuck no. I'm not going to do it. Hi, this is Jeremy. Sorry about that. I am an idiot, but you guys already know that. Forgot what I was talking about. Something along the lines of it. It was horrible. It was a horrible event. A lot of people, because of the Zapruder film, were able to see exactly what happened. And that's just nuts, man. To see something like that, the assassination of a U.S. president live on TV like that. Holy crap. Not live. I don't think it was live. I think it was just when they were able to see the Zapruder film afterwards. But, yeah, nuts. Crazy. Again, he was allegedly fatally shot by Lee Harvey Oswald firing from the nearby building. Governor Connally was seriously wounded in the attack. The motorcade rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where John F. Kennedy was pronounced dead about 30 minutes after the shooting. Oswald was arrested by Dallas Police Department 70 minutes after the shooting. Oswald was charged under Texas state law with the murder of JFK, as well as Dallas policeman J.D. Tippit, who had been fatally shot a short time after the assassination. So they, apparently after the assassination, the story is that he took off running, blah, blah, blah. A cop tried to stop him, and then he ended up shooting that cop. Actually used a handgun for that, I believe, which is weird. But, yeah, I guess that's what happened. So a few days later, because the assassination happened on the 22nd, so on the 24th, at about 11:21 a.m., as live television cameras were covering his transfer from the jail to the county jail, Oswald was fatally shot in the basement of the police headquarters by Dallas nightclub owner and gangster Jack Ruby. He was taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he died. Now, there are a number of reasons why Jack Ruby probably would have wanted to kill Oswald, but they claim the only reason was because he was upset that JFK was assassinated. He was upset at the fact that Jacqueline Kennedy was going to have to go through this trial and have to just go through all this emotional trauma, that he didn't want her to have to do that. So he decided, a nightclub owner decided that he was going to throw his life away. I mean, he did this in front of 30, 40, 50 people because there were so many reporters, cameras, everything there at the police station or the whatever, when he runs right up to him, point blank, and shoots him in the gut. Odd. That's just crazy itself, because, I mean, you're legitimately deciding that your life does not matter anymore. You're going to throw your life away so that way Jacqueline Kennedy doesn't have to go through a trial. That is crazy, people. That is really insane to even think about. But that's the story. That's what he did. So after the assassination, they created what's called the Warren Commission. Warren was this judge that was overseeing this commission where they actually investigated the assassination of John F. Kennedy. It didn't last very long because, again, it's such a cut and dry case. It was Lee Harvey Oswald, and then he died. So, and that's the story. That's all there is to it. Don't look over here anymore. Let's pay attention to the Vietnam War, I guess, because that's the only thing that matters anymore. Now, like I said, there's been investigations and things that have taken place since the Warren Commission came out with their official story, and they've proved that there's a ton of holes in that story, that it was actually very poorly done. And in fact, the people who were involved in the Warren Commission investigation were pretty sketchy people themselves. The director of the CIA, I think his name is Alan Dulles, was the one that was heading up this Warren Commission, and he was, like I said, he was the director of the CIA. He was the former director of the CIA because John F. Kennedy actually had him fired. They did not get along at all, yet this is the guy in charge of investigating his murder. I believe that he was involved in the murder, if you want to know the truth, which is why he was put in place to investigate the murder, but whatever. Give him the benefit of the doubt here. We're not here to talk about any of that. We're here to talk about Jack Ruby, even though we're going to end up talking about all of that because it is so insane. Like I said, there's a ton of holes in the original story. In 2003, actually, there was a poll done that showed that I think over 70% of Americans actually believe that there was some type of a conspiracy surrounding the JFK assassination and that they just do not believe the original story at all. And in fact, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, when they came to their conclusion later on in the 70s or whenever, I can't remember exactly when they released their findings, but they actually came to the conclusion that there was more than one shooter, and they did believe that there was some sort of a conspiracy surrounding the U.S. government, that there was a conspiracy to cover up the assassination of John F. Kennedy. They also believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was either not the gunman or definitely not the lone gunman. If you've ever seen the Zapruder film that shows John F. Kennedy getting shot, there's clearly something that hits him first, and he kind of goes forward and has his hand like this because somebody behind him, where Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly was behind him as they were driving. And then the fatal shot to the head hits him right here. His fucking head splits open and he jumps back and then falls over back into the left, essentially. And so that would tell me that the shot came from in front of him. So there's somebody here and there's somebody there. I mean, when you watch the video, it is so hard to come to the conclusion that fatal shot to the head came from behind him, because the shot came from in front of him, man. Now, people always have been trying to point the finger at the U.S. government or the CIA or the mob, and realistically, that's just going to confuse people because I believe it was all of them. Because again, they're so woven together. The CIA, the mob, the U.S. government, they're all the same people. I mean, they're all, right now, the U.S. government is literally made up of a bunch of fucking mobsters, dude. It's just how it is. These people are evil. They're not good people. You can't get a high seat in the U.S. government without getting involved in some shady shit and breaking some laws. And so they're just a bunch of criminals and mobsters that are running the world right now, and that's just the truth. So anyways, let's just get into it. Let's talk about who Jack Ruby is, and let's talk about his story. 2 days after Kennedy's assassination, Jack Ruby drove his car to a location kind of about a block away from the police station where all this shit happened. And he placed a phone call from a payphone, and I believe he called one of his dancers, because not only was he a nightclub owner, but he also was known for providing entertainment, whether it be dancers at his club or personal behind closed doors entertainment. He was well known for that. He had prostitutes, a bunch of other shit. He was well known in the police department. He was a connected man, not only by the Dallas Police Department, but also politics and the mafia, and actually had connections, I believe, in Cuba, because Cuba could have also been behind this. I believe there was either people connected to Fidel Castro in Cuba or connected to the people who were trying to take out Fidel Castro in Cuba that were connected to all of this shit. It's a fucking big story, guys. There's a lot going on. And kind of to sum that up, just so you can get the connection with Cuba, Fidel Castro basically came to power in Cuba, and most people believed that Fidel Castro was going to be friendly to the U.S. mob, who loved having their presence in these casinos in Cuba. And once Fidel Castro came to power, he basically kicked them all out. He didn't want any of them involved whatsoever, and that wasn't going to fly. So immediately, the mob hated the mafia. They hated Fidel Castro. They tried multiple times to take Fidel Castro out. They actually tried to involve Kennedy in a way to get Fidel Castro out of power, and there was a ton of false flags that happened. There's actually a story here about somebody who tried to create a bioweapon to take out Fidel Castro, again, because they wanted to get somebody more friendly in so that they could have their presence in these casinos. And then, that's just how the mafia was. But they that's how they're involved in whatever. That's again, it's pretty intricate. I don't want to get into it, but it's something that we may kind of circle back to a little bit later, because there is a story there that's fucking crazy that is part of this that I want to talk about. But anyways, Ruby was at this payphone. He made a call to one of his dancers. I don't know why, but he also wired money. And yeah, so that took place right before he head over to the police station. He walked the block to the police station and walked to the area where they were going to be transporting Oswald. And I believe that it was like down this ramp, and it was kind of underground where they were bringing Oswald out. But there was a ton of reporters. There's a whole bunch of people there. That's why this was, and live camera crew there. So like there was a live feed that was being broadcast to America as Oswald was being transported to his new location. Ruby jumps out of the crowd as Oswald is coming out and just runs right up to him. I mean, they're like this far away, and he's just got a gun to his gut. Shot fired. All these people surrounded. You can't even tell what's going on. It seems super fucking fake. It really does. It seems like it's right out of a movie, but with really shaky, shitty camera footage. And so then they grab Oswald, take him away behind closed doors. They grab Ruby, take him to another spot behind closed doors, and then that's it. And it's like, what I believe is that there was a shot fired. They fucking took Oswald away, had him killed because he needed to be silenced regardless. There was no way he was coming out of that situation alive. And then took Ruby to jail. But the original story is that he was distraught because of the assassination. Went there, saw Oswald coming out, and then shot him. And then later the guy's arrested. And it's crazy because Ruby was actually charged and convicted of murder and then sentenced to death. But his conviction was actually overturned shortly after that because they said that his confession was inadmissible. Like they couldn't use his confession. And it's because the confession consisted of somebody saying, "Jack, I think you killed him." And then Jack says, "Well, I was trying to shoot him 3 times. And that was just kind of either overheard or it was recorded somehow. And that was the confession they used in his trial. And they're like, we can't use that. That's not an actual confession. Like there needs to be a signed confession, blah, blah, blah. That's usually how it goes. Jack Ruby essentially died in prison, unconvicted. He wasn't convicted because he was still awaiting trial. But this had been 3-4 years later after he killed Oswald, that he had actually died in prison, essentially had a heart attack. Like, I think he was 48 or something, like 5 years older than I am right now. But whatever, doesn't matter. People lived different back then, so he probably was pretty rough to his body. But while he was there, he multiple times reached out to the Warren Commission, wanted to talk to them and say, I need to tell you guys what the fuck is going on. They weren't interested, which is crazy. They weren't interested in talking to him. They just weren't. The only suspect left, because obviously you've got Oswald who kills Kennedy. He's the prime suspect all of a sudden. And then this guy kills him. Now he's the only one really connected and involved that probably should be the most important person in this investigation. They weren't interested. And he although he was trying to reach out multiple times. Now they said the reason that they weren't interested is because of the fact that just before they brought Oswald down to be transported to a new location, there was a reporter or like a postal somebody that showed up unannounced that carried out this 30-minute like interview or whatever, and so it delayed his transport. And they said, had Jack Ruby really been connected and really been part of this larger conspiracy, he would have actually been there 30 minutes earlier, because that's when it was widely known that Oswald was being transported. But now that doesn't really work. Like, that kind of feeds into the argument that maybe he was connected, because maybe they knew this reporter was going to be there, and that's why he was actually there a half an hour later. I think he had inside knowledge that this reporter was going to be there. I think maybe he was involved in getting the reporter there at that time so that he could be there at the exact time. And whatever, we don't know. But regardless, I think it's really odd that he decided to do it in front of everybody, especially if he was planning on trying to get away with it. Who knows? Now, again, my theory now, and I'm going to just lay this out right now. I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was working with the CIA. There's a ton of information and a ton of evidence that actually backs that up, that he was actually an asset to the CIA. He was an agent working with the CIA. But just before the JFK assassination, he was actually ordered to move to Dallas, and was ordered to either assassinate the president or be involved in this operation. And then Jack Ruby, I believe, highly connected to the mafia. I believe that he was connected to the mafia. I think that he owed them, whether it be money or he owed them a favor, something big. And so that's why they tasked him with killing the person who killed the president, to tie up these loose ends, because it was all interwoven. I think it was all connected. It was, yeah, I think that's what happened. But again, the story is he just did it because he didn't want Jackie Kennedy to have to go through some shit. Whether that just kind of, it's just nuts on its own. I don't trust it. But anyways, again, I kind of told you what I believed happened. I've told you what the actual narrative is. And now I'm going to go over a little bit of the investigation that Garrison had, and then also the House Select Committee on Assassinations, the investigation that they had, because that's where a lot of this shit starts getting fishy. Not only that, but a lot of people start dying here. Anywhere between like 78 to 100 witnesses or people involved in this assassination and these investigations just strangely and oddly either died, committed suicide, or are missing. And that's a lot of motherfuckers. That sounds like a Clinton body count, if you ask me. But I'm going to go over some of this stuff because this is what's going to kind of give us a better idea as to how fucked up this is, and why I truly believe that Jack Ruby, although he may have killed Oswald, I believe that he was just doing it to silence Oswald as opposed to more of a vengeance type thing. So yeah, it was on July 18th, 1979, the United States House of Representatives Select Committee on Assassinations had concluded that Kennedy was assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, and that evidence shows there was more than one gunman. There was also a radio from a Dallas police officer that had audio sounds of these gunshots, and it proved that there was gunshots coming from multiple directions, and it sounded like different guns altogether. So that was part of that. Now, again, I said that there was a lot of people who were connected to these assassinations that ended up dying. And I already told you, Alan Dulles was the CIA director fired by Kennedy that was in charge of the Warren Commission. Another person that was involved in the Warren Commission was Thomas Hale Boggs. Boggs had doubts that JFK and J.D. Tippit had been killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. So Thomas Hale Boggs, obviously, he believed that Oswald was not only working with the CIA, but also worked with the FBI on multiple occasions. And the FBI, so he was wanting them to investigate this and look into that to say, hey, why was this motherfucker connected to the government in so many different ways? He was kind of upset about that. He thought that was kind of sketchy, and he really wished they would have investigated this more, because he believed, without a doubt, that was the center of this story, and it was the most important aspect that they should have been investigating. He said that he was, quote, very, very torn during his work on the commission. He wished he had never been on it, and wished he'd never had signed the actual commission, like, because all the people involved with the investigation had to sign and say, yeah, this is what we agree on. He had said he wished he would have never signed it at all because he thought there were so many holes, so many flaws in the actual investigation itself. And these investigations that took place afterwards actually corroborate that. They've said that, yeah, this investigation was piss poor, and basically came to the conclusion that their findings were wrong. It's just, the story didn't happen the way they said it happened. Regardless, Thomas Hale Boggs disappeared while on a campaign flight from Anchorage to Juneau in Alaska. This happened in 1972. However long after the assassination, but it wasn't too much farther after the Warren Commission had released their shit to the public. So, and then he had actually become openly against the findings, and then of course his flight went down and nobody ever found it. I believe he was never, I don't think his flight was found at all. Another person that has an odd connection and death to all of this is Gary Underhill. He went to Harvard. He worked in the military intelligence service. He worked for the CIA in the Office of Strategic Service. After the assassination, he had come out to associates, friends, family members, and he had said, Oswald's a patsy. This is not the man who killed JFK. He said, the bastards have done something outrageous. They set him up. They have killed the president. I can't believe they got away with it, but they did. I know who they are, and they know that I know. He then was saying that he had to get out of New York as soon as possible. He actually said that he feared that somebody was going to probably have him killed. Just a few days later, he was found dead. It was called suicide. It was a gunshot to the head. Now, here's the weird thing about it is he was right-handed. So instinctively, you grab a gun, shoot yourself in the head. That's normally what happens. But what they come to find is that the entrance wound was behind his left ear, meaning he would have had to have used his left hand. And most people put it to their temple, but he put it behind his ear, almost like somebody was up or standing behind him and shot him in the head. Who knows? I don't know. Again, that's just the story. Very, very fucking fishy, though. And shortly, days after he come out talking some shit saying that somebody had JFK killed and it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald, the guy comes up dead. Suicide. Here's 3 guys. Now, this one is fucking sketchy, and this one alone could be a full episode on its own. But we've got Bill Hunter, Jim Coffey, and Tom Howard. Now, Bill Hunter worked for the Long Beach Press. He was a reporter. Jim Coffey, I forgot how his name is pronounced. He worked for the Dallas Times. And then Tom Howard was Jack Ruby's attorney. Now, Tom Howard and Jack Ruby's roommate, that guy's name was George Senator. Tom Howard and George Senator had met with Jack Ruby right after the killing of Oswald. And Ruby had told them about some shit, gave them permission to go to his place and search for something. I don't know what it was. I really don't. But these 2 reporters, Hunter and Coffey, went with them, I believe, or they were there, whatever. All these guys were there together searching this Jack Ruby's place. Now, what they found, I don't know. But Bill Hunter was shot dead by Creighton Wiggins. Now, he was shot in the police department. They had claimed that that he had dropped his gun, and that upon picking it back up, he accidentally shot this guy right through the heart. The investigation said that it was less than or right at 3 feet away was where they were. Like, so we're talking right here. Like, he's fucking this far away. Boom, right through the heart. But he said it's because he dropped his gun, and upon picking it up, it fired on accident. Well, after investigation and going to court and all that, they decided that's bullshit. That's not what happened. So then he had claimed that he and another officer were doing like quick draw McGraw here, like pretending that they were pulling their guns out on each other, and then it accidentally went off. Well, the guy he was playing that game with actually had his back turned, so he didn't see anything that happened. But I just thought it was very fucking odd that this guy dies in the police department, around this same time. Kind of fucking nuts. Shortly after that, Jim Coffey decided to write a book about the assassination on John F. Kennedy. However, he died, again, just a few months later in his house. He was actually taking a shower, and an assassin or whoever broke in, karate chopped him to the throat. Throat chop, baby. A fucking killer throat chop. That's wicked, but that's the story. And it killed him. But the guy who broke into his house forgot to steal shit. He really did. He just killed him. So, very, very sketchy. Sounds like some fucking mid-60s crime movie bullshit again. But it's just very, very unbelievable. It really is. Then the attorney Tom Howard, who also was in this meeting and went to the house with these guys, died just a few months later of a heart attack. So all three of them dead. It's nuts. Now another person who had a mysterious death, another reporter, Dorothy Kilgallon. She worked for the New York Journal, and she obtained a private interview with Jack Ruby. She told friends and family that she had information that would break the case wide open. Aware of what happened to Bill Hunter and Jim Coffey, she decided that she was going to give this information, some of this information, to a friend of hers as well, just in case something did actually happen to her. Now, Dorothy was found dead in her home, I believe. It was reported that it was a suicide, but her friend, Margaret Smith, that she gave this information to, actually died 2 days after her. Weird. It's ironic. I mean, it's a coincidence. This stuff happens all the time, people. No, it doesn't. Another person by the name of Mary Sherman. Now, this one's wicked, man. This one's pretty intricate, but it doesn't take a crazy conspiracy theorist to fucking connect the dots here. This kind of ties together the CIA, the Cuban conspiracy, the mafia, Lee Harvey Oswald himself, and then some other people who end up dying later on in the story. But this lady was a doctor who was trying to create this bioweapon, something that was going to get Fidel Castro cancer, I believe is what they were trying to do. They were trying to somehow give him this virus or whatever it was, but it was a bioweapon that was going to make him get cancer and die because, again, they tried multiple different ways to take out Fidel Castro, and this was just one of them. There's also a book about this, I believe, that has come out. Not only that, but there's this lady who was involved that has started telling her story. She's had a ton of interviews. She's been on TV or whatever. They just look at it as a conspiracy theory, but this was somebody who was actually involved in all of this. And then this lady, Judy Baker, she began giving interviews about what happened. And she had said that in 1963, she was recruited to work with Dr. Sherman in a CIA secret project that was involved to take out Fidel Castro. Now, she said that Oswald was involved in this as well, and he was actually working with the CIA as a courier, and I don't even know what that is, but either way, shortly after that, I believe it was in September of 1963, Oswald was actually ordered to Dallas by the CIA, and this is according to this lady, the lady who actually dated Oswald, she said. Now, she claims that Oswald had actually kept in touch with her, and then in November 1963, he had actually reached out and told her that he was being forced to take out the United States President, John F. Kennedy, by the CIA, and he had actually told her, I will do whatever I can to make sure that they do not kill the president. Whatever, I don't know. That's what she had said. Now, she was actually contacted by David Ferry after all this happened, and was told, you need to stay silent or you will be killed. She was supposed to stay silent about everything. And so she was threatened. And as she's seeing people probably getting picked off, people dying just like that. I mean, she saw Oswald get murdered live on TV. She kept silent. In fact, she kept silent until like 1999, 2000, 2003, right about that time. And when she finally came out and started telling her story, that's probably the only reason this lady is still alive. But anyways, getting back to the original story, although that lady that has told this story was able to stay alive, back in 1964, Dr. Mary Sherman was murdered in New Orleans. She had been stabbed in the heart, arm, leg, stomach, and her laboratory was actually burned to the ground. Kind of an odd story. I know I kind of ran around in circles here when I was telling this lady's story, but it's just crazy. I just wanted you to see the connection with the CIA, Oswald, and then all these other people. That's one of the stories that proves that he was connected to the CIA. Whether it proves it 100% or not, I don't know, but it's just, this is what this lady was saying, and they did know each other. All of these people knew each other, and so I believe this is how they were connected. Another person now, we just talked about this person, David Ferry. It was announced in 1967 that David would actually be subject of Garrison, the guy who came out and did another investigation. He was going to be part of this investigation. He wanted to be talked to. They wanted to get sworn affidavit testimony from him. They wanted him to talk about his alleged involvement in the CIA and then just, everything that he knew about all of this stuff. The minute the news came out that Ferry was going to have to be a part of Garrison's investigation, he started telling people, you know what this does to me? I'm a dead man. From here on out, I am a dead man. Like, they're going to kill me now. He was found a week later, I believe. Even though it looked like he died of natural causes, he actually had 2 different suicide letters at his house that were kind of just sitting on stacks of paper. It was weird, but 2 different ones. And so they called it a suicide. Another person, Sam Gyansana. This person was gunned down days before testifying in front of Senate. He was believed to have information on both the JFK assassination and attempted assassination of Fidel Castro. He was to answer questions about the CIA mafia ties. This guy was shot in the back of the head and then also shot several times in the mouth, a sign of silencing somebody who was going to talk. John Roselli, probably a mafia tie here. He also believed to have information about the JFK assassination and did testify on his involvement of the attempted assassination of Fidel Castro. His body was found in a 55-gallon oil drum floating in the Caribbean just days after he testified. Now that has mafia all over it, baby. Another gentleman, this guy's name is George de Moranthschild. I probably said that wrong, but he was assigned, again, this is a claim that the CIA actually assigned him to be the best friend of Lee Harvey Oswald. He had also claimed to be an associate of the director of the CIA at this time, George Bush Sr. But anyways, the claim was that he was approached by the CIA and was told, you need to become an acquaintance of Oswald. Why? I don't know, but this guy was pretty paranoid. After all of this shit happened, he had believed he'd been being followed by the FBI, by the CIA. He actually reached out to George Bush because, again, they knew each other and said, please tell these people to back off. I just want to live a normal life. I want to be alone. He was actually asking him, tell the FBI to leave me alone. Tell the CIA, leave me alone. They're following me, and I just want to live a normal life. I believe the guy's wife was actually sick at the time, so he just wanted to be left alone. In 1977, this dude was contacted by the House Select Committee on Assassinations and said that they were interested in talking with him. They wanted to know about the information that he had connected to the assassination. Later that afternoon, he was actually found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. So this guy killed himself right after he was contacted by somebody who wanted to speak with him, and these people were investigating the assassination. Just another weird one, man. Here's another one. Hank Killum. Hank Killum was a known associate of Jack Ruby. Many people who knew Hank said he became very paranoid after the assassination, which is just kind of a thing. A lot of people did. They claimed he either had seen, or knew something. What exactly he knew about the assassination or Jack Ruby is unknown. What we do know is that Hank actually talked to his brother, was extremely paranoid. He told his brother, I am a dead man. I have run as far as I'm going to run. 2 days later, he was actually found dead inside of a department store. His throat had been slashed, and he was thrown through the department store window. They ruled his death a suicide, which is odd. This one here, her name is Rose Cherami, Cherami. Rose claimed that when she was driving from Florida to Dallas, she actually was picked up by these men, and these men claimed that they were going to Dallas to kill the President of the United States. Odd. She was then thrown from the vehicle and almost died. But that's how she got her story out. Later on in the hospital, she was telling a police officer and nurses, like, hey, these people are going to go kill the President of the United States. Later on, she tried telling her story multiple times. Later on, she was actually found dead in the middle of a highway. So that lady got wiped out. Roger Craig, not the 49ers running back from the 80s, but a different Roger D. Craig. This was a police officer who was on duty November 22nd when JFK was shot. After hearing the gunshots, he ran towards the grassy knoll where people claimed there was another shooter. He interviewed witnesses there of the shooting, and about 15 minutes after the shooting, he saw a man running out from back of the book depository and jumped into a station wagon and took off. Later, Craig saw the man again in the office of Captain Will Fitz, whoever that is. And it was Lee Harvey Oswald. That's the guy that he saw in this, I believe, the police station or in this office of whoever. When Craig told his story about the man being picked up by the station wagon, Oswald actually replied, "That station wagon belongs to Miss Payne. Don't try to bring her into this. She had nothing to do with it." Like, obviously, whoever, I don't know. So that part kind of is a little weird. Craig was also with Seymour Witzman when the rifle was found, and he claimed that the rifle was a 7.65 Mauser, not the Mannlicher, whatever that's called. I don't fucking know what that is, but not the gun that they claimed killed John F. Kennedy. This guy was like, no, the gun that was there was a 7.65 Mauser. Anyways, he ended up becoming very unpopular in the police department because of the fact that he's just like, shit doesn't seem right, guys. This is a little weird. His story was going to point at multiple gunmen. And he's like, this doesn't make any sense, whatever. Anyways, this guy got fired because they believed that he was discussing information with other people about the investigation. They didn't like it, so they fired him. In 1967, he moved to New Orleans and became one of the prosecution's witnesses to the trial of Clay Shaw. Later that year, he was shot walking to his car. The bullet only grazed his head, and in 1973, a car actually forced him off of a mountain, almost killing him. He was badly injured, but actually survived the accident. In 1974, he survived another shooting in Texas. The following year, he was seriously wounded when his car engine exploded. Typical mob shit. Craig told friends that the Mafia had decided they were going to kill him. He was found dead on 15th of May. It was later decided that he died as a result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Bullshit. Calling it. Bullshit. That's a lot of motherfuckers, man. These are people who, I mean, there's hundreds or whatever. There was again, some of them are kind of far-fetched, but there was at least about 73 that are hardcore, legit fucking people connected to this that died. And it's crazy because they legitimately had an assassination of a U.S. president and they were just tying up loose ends. My conclusion is that the CIA, the mob, U.S. government, they worked together to have the president assassinated. Not sure exactly how Lee Harvey Oswald was involved, but he was definitely a CIA agent, and so he was involved that way. Like, he probably was tasked with the job, had no idea who was going to fucking take the fall, was upset about it. He was a very well-spoken person. Like, he was smart. And, in fact, multiple times when he had been on camera in the short 2 days before he was killed, he had said multiple times, I want legal representation. These guys are not giving me legal representation, and I want my legal representation. He had actually had a black eye, you can see in a lot of the videos, and somebody asked him, what happened to your eye? And he said, a police officer punched me. He had also said that he's like, I didn't have anything to do with this. I'm a patsy. They're setting me up. I didn't even know anything about the president being assassinated until I heard it from you reporters in the hall who kept asking me, did I kill the president? Did I kill the president? Like, he's like, I didn't even know anything about it until you guys brought it up to me as I'm walking through the halls here. I think that he was set up. I really, really do. And I think that before he could get out and there could be a trial and they could probably find him not guilty, Jack Ruby was tasked to kill him. The mob had told him, you need to take this motherfucker out and we will pay off your debts, because I believe he was massively in debt. Either that or he owed them a massive favor at some point. So they made him do it. And I think that maybe he was promised that either his family was going to be okay or he was promised that they would get him out somehow. I don't know. But he had later, just a few years later, died in prison. Either way, I believe Oswald, had all the motivation in the world to come out, whether he was working with them or not, and say, this is what happened, you guys. I'm not the one who killed him. And here's my story. Like, he had all the motivation in the world to speak up because he was in jail right now for killing the president of the United States. How much worse could life get, really? And so I believe that the U.S. government couldn't have it. There's no way they could keep that man alive, so they had to have him killed immediately. And I believe that Jack Ruby was the assassin to do that. And I just believe this conspiracy is so huge, man. There's so much shit going on that I think it's so hard to just focus on one thing, because it all is intertwined. It all keeps coming around to the same. And it's crazy. Like, this was essentially just on Jack Ruby. I ended up talking about a lot of other shit because you need to understand how he's involved and how it's all connected and how fucked up this was. But a U.S. president was murdered by his own government, by the CIA, and by the mob. And I believe that's Robert Kennedy, I believe, was killed by the mob as well. And that's, again, an episode on its own, but whatever. I think this has been pretty long, I think. So I think that's enough. I'm going to call her quits right here. Jack Ruby, motherfucker, you're a bad man. I don't know about Oswald. Whatever. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please, again, subscribe, follow us on social media, The Uncensored Truth, and Mic Drop, Mildly Intelligent Conversations. We're actually going to do an episode on the moon landing. I know I've been talking about it for a long time, but we're actually working on it right now. We're going to get together, me and Eric, Mic Drop, Mildly Intelligent Conversations. We're going to have an episode on the moon landing. It's going to be awesome. Or, I mean, the lack of a moon landing. We'll get into it later. I don't want to get into it right now. It kind of pisses me off. But either way, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all that. Please follow us. It's the best way you can help out and show support to the show. So thanks again. And until the next time, keep your eyes open, because there's some shit going on. Boom, baby. No hesitation on the boom, baby. I had to do it right away because I'm running out of time.